Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In this video, we will discuss how to dismantle the gearbox, clean the gears using a suitable solvent and check the gearbox and its parts. We will finally assemble the gearbox. By the end of this video, you will be able to dismantle the gearbox, clean the gears using a suitable solvent, check the gearbox and its parts and assemble the gearbox. Let us collect the tools, machinery and materials required to do this. Trainees toolkit 1, spanner socket pieces with box 1 set, outside micrometer 1, torque wrench 1, feeler gauge 20 blades metric 1, oil can 0.5 or 0.25 liter capacity 1, bearing puller 1, electric pedestal grinder with two 18 cm wheels 1, taps and dies 1, cleaning tray aluminium 45 by 30 cm 1, gearbox 1, kerosene as required, gear oil as required, grease as required, a bunion cloth or waste cloth as required. Dismantling the gearbox. We need to remove the drain and filler plugs that are attached to the gearbox housing and drain the old oil. Next, we remove the shift lever housing pin and then the shift lever from the housing. Remove the shift housing bolts. Remove the gear shift housing assembly along with the gasket and shifting fork from the gearbox housing. Remove the screws and washer of the pinion's shaft bearing retainer with the felt. Remove the retainer and gasket. Remove the lock plate through the slot cut in the rear end of the countershaft and the reverse idler gear shaft. Drive out the countershaft by using the brass drift. Allow the countershaft gear set to drop to the bottom of the gearbox housing. Remove the cotter pin, main shaft and washer. Remove the main shaft rear bearing and rear bearing spacer. Remove the main shaft along with the gear from the case through the rear bearing spacer's opening. Remove the sliding gear, first and reverse gear from the main shaft. Remove the blocking ring and snap ring. Remove the synchronizer clutch sleeve. While removing the clutch sleeve, take care of the synchronizer plates and remove the synchronizer plates and spring. Remove the clutch hub. Remove the second blocking ring. Remove the second speed gear. Remove the bearing lock snap ring. Drive out the pinion shaft along with the bearing and washer. Remove the pilot needle bearing. Remove the countershaft gear set. Remove the front and rear thrust washers. Remove the roller needle bearings from the countershaft gear set along with the washers and spacer. Remove the reverse idler gear shaft by using a brass drift. Remove the reverse idler gear. Dismantle the gear shift housing assembly by removing the interlocking plunger, the rail caps, poppet balls and springs, shifting fork lock pins, shifting rails and shifting forks. Start by washing the transmission and case thoroughly inside and out and then clean all the components. Inspect the synchronizer rings and cones for wear, crack and overheat. Inspect the synchronizer clutch sleeve and dog teeth for damage. Inspect the hub's splines for damage and free movement on the main shaft. Inspect the synchronizer shifting plates for damage and proper seating. Inspect the blocking rings for wear, crack and overheat. Inspect hub snap ring for proper tension and seating. Inspect the transmission case, bearings and all the gears for crack, wear, damage and overheat. Let us check the gears for free movement on the main shaft and inspect the bushes for wear and damage. Inspect the shaft bores in the transmission case for wear, crack and damage. Inspect the main shaft spline, countershaft bore and main shaft drive for damage. Check the counter gear set, countershaft and reverse idler gear shaft for damage and wear. Inspect the bush, roller bearings for crack, wear and overheat. Assembling the gearbox. Assemble the reverse idler gear and shaft into the case. When fixing, ensure that the chamfered side of the idler gear faces towards the sliding gear. Align the slot on the reverse gear shaft for proper locking. Assembling the countershaft gear set. Insert the spacer into the countershaft gear's hub. Place the washers, one at each end of the spacer, and push needle bearings at each end. Again, add washer at both the ends and push the needle bearings. Finally, place one more washer at both the ends and complete the assembly. Place the countershaft gear set in the bottom of the gearbox housing. Ensure that the larger gear faces towards the pinion shaft in the gear housing. Apply grease on the front and rear thrust washers and place them at their respective positions in the gearbox housing. Install two synchronizer springs in the hub with the spring tension opposed. Place the ends of the spring in the slots of the hub. Install the three synchronizer shifting plates in the three slots in the clutch hub with the smooth side of the plate facing outward. Slip the clutch sleeve over the clutch hub. Install the second speed gear on the main shaft. Ensure that its dog teeth face towards the front of the gearbox housing. Place the blocking ring on the second speed gear towards the front of the gearbox housing. Install the clutch hub with the clutch sleeve on the main shaft front end without disturbing the synchronizer plate. Lock the hub with the main shaft by inserting the clutch hub snap ring. Pass the front end of the main shaft in the case through the rear end, bearing opening, and assemble the low and reverse sliding gear on the main shaft. Ensure that the shifting groove of gear faces towards the front of the gearbox housing. Place the bearing spacer on the main shaft rear side. Fix the rear bearing spacer. Assemble the rear end bearing. Place the main shaft washer. Tighten the main shaft castle nut at the recommended torque. Lock the castle nut by the cotter pin. Apply grease and place the pinion shaft pilot bearing in the pinion shaft spigot. Install the bearing washer, bearing and the bearing snap ring on the pinion shaft. Install the pinion shaft with bearing on the housing and fix the pinion shaft snap ring. Place the oil seal in the bearing retainer. Fix the bearing retainer with a gasket to the case. Lift the counter gear set. Align the counter shaft front thrush washer and rear thrust washers with the bore of the counter shaft gear set. Align the counter gear set bore and gear housings front and rear bores. Insert the counter shaft into the counter gear set. Tap the counter shaft to enter into the front side of the gearbox housing. Ensure the position of the three thrust washers. Please check the gear end place as per manufacturer's specifications. Align the counter shaft and idler gear shaft slots. Fix the lock plate. Fix the drain plug. Fill up gear oil to the specific level and fix the filler plug. In this video, we have discussed how to dismantle the gearbox, clean the gears using a suitable solvent, check the gearbox and its parts, and assemble the gearbox. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video.